I'm 43 years old, and most people who know me now would describe me the same way. Disciplined, quiet, good with money. A stock trader who works from home in a nice neighborhood where the mailboxes match. The lawns are trimmed twice a week. And the worst thing most people ever have to complain about is a broken sprinkler head or a dog barking too early on a Saturday morning. From the outside, my life looked controlled. I had the office with 3 monitors. I had the tidy kitchen. I had the marriage that seemed mature enough not to require constant performance. My wife, Tricia, and I had been together for 11 years, and one of the reasons people thought we worked was because we didn't cling to each other. We had our own routines, our own interests, our own lanes. She liked the gym, brunches, girls' nights, family group chats, and all the small social rituals that keep certain women at the center of a community without them ever seeming to try. I liked charts, routines, early mornings, and the satisfaction of closing my office door and making decisions in silence. We weren't one of those couples who needed to be fused together every second. At least that's what I told myself. What almost nobody knew about me was that before I ever became a trader, before I made money sitting in a climate-controlled home office with blackout curtains and market feeds glowing on the wall, I had a very different job. I used to work as a technology penetration specialist. That was the polite title. What it really meant was that companies hired me to find weaknesses in systems they believed were secure. Networks, habits, employee behavior, access points, blind spots. I spent years learning one very specific lesson. Most breaches don't happen because of some brilliant attack. They happen because somebody gets comfortable. Somebody assumes a locked door is enough. Somebody stops looking. By the time I noticed the first crack in my marriage, I should have recognized it for what it was. But there's a difference between evaluating a system and evaluating the person you sleep beside for over a decade. A system doesn't smile at you in the kitchen. A system doesn't ask whether you want coffee. A system doesn't lay a hand on your shoulder and make you feel stupid for even noticing the shift. The first crack was small. That's how it always starts. Tricia's workouts got longer. At first it was easy to explain. She'd always cared about staying in shape. She was 40, proud of the fact that she still looked better than women 10 years younger, and disciplined enough to make that happen. So when her usual hour at the gym became an hour and a half, then 2 hours, I didn't say much. She said the new trainer had changed the class schedule. She said the locker room had been crowded. She said she was sitting in the parking lot decompressing because home felt too still after being around people all day. None of those explanations were impossible. That's the danger of a good lie. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be plausible. Then came the phone. Tricia had never been careless with it exactly, but she had never been theatrical either. Then one day I noticed that when I walked behind the couch, the screen turned dark before I reached her shoulder. Not dramatically, not in some movie-style panic. Just a reflex, a quick thumb, a quiet angle. One of those movements, so small it would sound paranoid to mention. After that, I saw it everywhere. Screen tipped away at dinner. Phone face down on the counter. Muted notifications. An almost elegant little habit of carrying it room to room, even into the laundry room, even outside to check the mail, even to the bathroom when she used to leave it charging on the nightstand without a second thought. I noticed because noticing used to be my profession. But I said nothing because denial is a profession too, if you practice it long enough. The deeper shift came through family. Tricia came from one of those families that acts casual but tracks everything. Birthdays, recitals, cookouts, graduation, Sunday lunches, anniversaries, random drop-ins. There was always something. Her mother kept an emotional ledger on everybody. Her aunt had an opinion about every marriage. Her sister, Dana, floated through all of it with that dangerous combination of beauty and self-awareness that made people underestimate how sharp she really was. For years, Tricia had treated family functions like mandatory appearances. Sometimes she complained, sometimes she rolled her eyes, but she showed up. Then she stopped. Not all at once, just enough to create a pattern. Her cousin's baby shower. She had a migraine. Her uncle's retirement dinner. Her friend Melissa was having a crisis. a Sunday cookout at her mother's. She said she needed a reset day and spent the afternoon with the girls. A birthday lunch for Dana. Same thing. She never made it sound hostile. That would have been easier to confront. Instead, she framed it as exhaustion, pressure, the need for boundaries, the language people use when they want to sound healthy while hiding something rotten underneath. I remember one evening in particular. I was cleaning up after dinner while CNBC murmured from the living room. Trisha was leaning against the island in leggings and a fitted zip-up, still glowing from some combination of gym lighting and whatever secret had begun warming her from the inside. "You're really not going to your mom's tomorrow?" I asked. She shrugged. "I told you I'm probably meeting Melissa." For the third family thing in a row, she gave me a look then. Not guilt. Annoyance. "Why are you counting?" I dried my hands and looked at her. "Because it's noticeable." She folded her arms. "Or maybe I'm just tired of rearranging my life around people who think I owe them attendance. Your family is going to start asking questions." "They already ask questions," she said. "That's what they do." Then she picked up her phone, glanced at it, and smiled at something she didn't show me. That smile bothered me more than the lie. Because it wasn't the smile a woman gives a friend. It was private. It had the slight inward curve of somebody receiving oxygen from a place she shouldn't. That night I lay awake next to her and stared at the ceiling fan turning shadows across the room. I told myself I was overreacting. I told myself marriages go through phases. I told myself independence was healthy. But somewhere under all that, an older part of me had already awakened. The part that tests assumptions. The part that says if behavior changes, then the environment changed first. A week later, I started paying attention the way I used to for work. Not illegally. Not dramatically. I didn't install spyware or break into anything. I didn't need to. Most people reveal themselves through routine, long before technology ever has to. I started with time. When she left, when she returned, what she wore to errands that somehow required perfume, which nights she was most protective of her phone, which names came up most often in conversation, and which ones disappeared. Trisha made one mistake that still amazes me. She lied inconsistently. That's what people do when they believe they're talking to somebody who isn't really listening. One Thursday, she told me she and Melissa were trying a late Pilates class across town. An hour later, her mother texted in the family thread asking if Trisha could still stop by the house on Saturday to help with some photo albums before relatives came in the next week. Trisha replied almost instantly, "Busy Saturday afternoon but free that evening." Busy with what? She never said. By then, little fragments had started piling up. A gym membership charge that posted on a day the facility was closed early. A restaurant reservation email preview that flashed across her lock screen before disappearing. A pair of earrings she claimed she'd worn forever, even though I had never seen them in 11 years. And perhaps most telling of all, a lightness in her when she thought I wasn't looking. Not happiness, not peace, anticipation, the emotional equivalent of someone checking a hotel room number in their head. I followed her for the first time on a Tuesday. I'm not proud of that sentence, but I'm not going to clean it up either. She told me she was heading to an evening class, kissed me on the cheek, and left in black athletic wear with a tote bag and a water bottle. I gave her 10 minutes, then got in my car. There are moments in life when the whole future narrows into a single red taillight. That was one of them. She didn't go to the gym. She drove to a retail plaza about 20 minutes away, parked near a wine bar, and got out still dressed like she was going to work out. 5 minutes later, a man arrived in a gray SUV. Mid-40s maybe. Confident posture. No hesitation. He walked straight to her, and she smiled in a way I hadn't seen in months. Then he kissed her like this wasn't new. Not tentative. Not guilty. Familiar. I stayed in my car and watched my wife put a hand against another man's chest and laugh at something he said before they went inside together. For a while I just sat there. People imagine that when you catch a spouse cheating, you explode. You storm in. You throw punches. You become the kind of man action scenes are built around. That's not what happened to me. What happened to me was colder. My body went still in a way that felt almost clinical. My hearing sharpened. My breathing slowed. Years of professional detachment flooded back into me, not because I was strong, but because shock has a strange way of borrowing old skills. I noted the license plate. I noted the time. I noted the entrance they used, and the side exit they came out of 92 minutes later. 92 minutes. There's something brutal about a specific number. She came home flushed and bright-eyed, carrying nothing from the gym but the same water bottle she had taken out. "How was class?" I asked from the kitchen. She tossed her keys into the bowl by the door. "Brutal. I'm dead." Then she walked over and kissed me with the mouth she'd used to lie all evening. That was the moment the marriage ended. Not legally, not socially, but spiritually. It ended right there on the tile floor with her hand still warm from another man's arm. His name was Eric. I learned that 2 days later. Not from hacking, from listening. Trisha was in the laundry room speaking in a low voice. She thought the dryer would cover. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught enough. "No, not this weekend. My family's going to be at the house." Pause. "I know," pause. "I miss you too." Then softer with the tone of a woman risking a smile she can't control. "Eric, stop." That was all I needed. After that, the pattern unfolded fast. He wasn't just some random fling. He was built into her schedule. Lunches disguised as errands. Weekday afternoons disguised as fitness. Family events skipped, so she could spend time with him under the umbrella term of friends. The more I saw, the more insulting it became. Not because she was cheating, because she thought so little of me while doing it. She thought I was the stable husband in the office upstairs, the one who looked at candlesticks and earnings reports all day, and failed to notice the simplest breach unfolding inside his own walls. What she didn't know was that once certainty enters a man, something changes. The pain was there. God, it was there. But under it, decisions started forming. I didn't confront her right away. Maybe that makes me weak. Maybe it makes me dangerous. I don't know anymore. What I do know is that I wanted the truth to rip through the exact image she had used to protect herself. I wanted the family she kept dodging, lying to, and using as background decoration to be present when the mask finally cracked. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Her relatives were coming in from out of town the following Sunday. Her mother, an aunt, a cousin, Dana, and Dana's husband at the time. Our house was the best place to host because it was bigger and cleaner, and because, in families like theirs, generosity is often just a stage for hierarchy. Trisha spent the whole week preparing, cleaning baseboards, buying flowers, marinating meat, pretending at domestic grace while texting another man in the pantry. Dana came by the day before to help set up. Dana and I had always gotten along well in that polite in-law way. She was a year younger than Trisha, but carried herself differently. Less curated, less eager to impress. She noticed things and usually kept her mouth shut about them, which I appreciated. That afternoon, while Trisha was upstairs changing, Dana stood beside me in the kitchen arranging a tray of sliced fruit. "You okay?" she asked without looking at me. I almost laughed. "Why, you seem somewhere else." "I'm fine." She put down the knife and studied me. "You're not a convincing liar, Evan." That surprised me enough to look at her. She lowered her voice. "She hasn't been herself." I said nothing. Dana's eyes shifted toward the stairs, then back to me. "I don't know what's going on, but something's off. There are moments when a sentence could change everything. That was one of them. I could have told her then. I could have ended it privately. Maybe some version of me should have. Instead I said, "Tomorrow's going to be interesting." She stared at me for a long second. Then she nodded once, very slightly, and went back to the fruit. Sunday arrived bright and mild, one of those suburban spring days that makes every house look more innocent than it is. By noon the kitchen was full. Wine glasses, deviled eggs, too much perfume, her aunt talking too loud, her mother correcting everyone's memories, Dana laughing at something by the sliding door, Trisha moving through the house like a practiced hostess, beautiful and composed, and just tense enough around the eyes for me to know she was still managing multiple worlds in her head. I waited until everyone had a drink in hand. Then I stood by the dining table and said, "Can I have everybody's attention for a second?" The room softened into curiosity. Tricia smiled cautiously. What is this? I looked at her and saw the first real flicker of unease. I think, I said, this is the best time to clear something up. Her mother frowned. Clear what up? I kept my voice calm. The reason Tricia hasn't been making it to family events. Tricia's face changed. That is the memory that still comes back to me most vividly. Not fear. Recognition. The split second when she understood that I knew. Evan, she said sharply, not now. No, I said. Now. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, but my voice never wavered. She hasn't been missing family functions because she's tired, or because Melissa needs her, or because she's overwhelmed. She's been missing them because she's been seeing someone else. Silence hit the room like glass breaking underwater. Her aunt actually gasped. Her mother looked from me to Tricia and back again, as if the truth might still choose one of us. Dana went completely still. Tricia set down her wine glass with a shaking hand. You don't get to do this, I laughed then. Not loudly. Just once. I don't get to do this. Stop, she hissed. You're being insane. His name is Eric, that landed. Her whole face drained. Her mother whispered, Tricia. I stepped toward the center of the room. Tuesday. Wine bar on Preston. Thursday call in the laundry room. Skipped birthdays, cookouts, dinners, and blamed your family for being too much while she was making time for him. You followed me, she said, and now the anger was cracking into panic. I noticed you, I replied. That's different. Her mother sank into a chair. Her aunt started asking questions no one answered. Dana looked like she had been slapped. Tricia's eyes filled with tears, but I knew her too well by then to mistake tears for remorse. Some tears are grief. Some are humiliation. These people didn't need to hear this, she said. You made them part of it the second you used them as cover. For the first time in 11 years, I watched my wife lose control in front of the audience she valued most. She turned on me, voice rising. You think you're so clean. You think sitting in that office all day makes you some kind of saint. You've been gone for years, Evan. Right in front of me. Detached, cold, obsessed with your screens. Then leave, I said. You could have left. The room went quiet again. Leave the marriage. Leave the house. Say you were unhappy. Say you wanted out. But don't cheat and then rewrite me into the reason. That shut her up. Dana stepped forward then and put a hand on their mother's shoulder. Mom, she said gently, why don't you sit down? Tricia looked around the room, searching for alignment, for sympathy, for anyone willing to rescue her from the wreckage of her own choices. No one moved. That was the end of the gathering. Her relatives left in broken clusters. Her mother crying. Her aunt furious. Dana staying back just long enough to ask whether I wanted her to take some of the food no one would touch. Tricia went upstairs and slammed the bedroom door. I stayed in the kitchen amid half-filled glasses and platters of uneaten food, looking at the battlefield of a life that had finally stopped pretending. She moved out within 2 weeks. The divorce process started soon after, and that should have been where the story ended. Simple, clean, betrayed husband exposes cheating wife. Marriage collapses. Everyone moves on carrying their own version of the blame. But simple endings belong to better people than us. The first time Dana came by after Tricia left, it was to drop off some mail that had been delivered to her mother, by mistake. She stood on the porch wearing jeans and no makeup, holding a stack of envelopes and looking as tired as I felt. You don't have to invite me in, she said. I did anyway. We stood in the kitchen, where the whole thing had detonated weeks earlier. It felt strange and inevitable all at once. I'm sorry, she said after a while. For what? For all of it. For not seeing it sooner. For being related to this mess. I almost smiled. You're not responsible for your sister. No, she said quietly. But I know what it's like to watch someone keep choosing destruction and still somehow expect everyone else to clean around it. That sentence told me more about Dana's marriage than she probably intended. After that, we started talking. Not every day. Not dramatically. Just here and there. A text about paperwork. A call about Tricia's mother. A coffee that lasted longer than it should have. The kind of conversations that begin in logistics and drift toward loneliness before either person notices. She told me things about Tricia I'd never known. Patterns from younger years. Small manipulations. family dynamics that rewarded beauty and performance over honesty. I told her things about the silence inside the house after the divorce papers were filed, about the strange humiliation of being pitied in your own neighborhood. Dana's own marriage, it turned out, had been hollow for much longer than anyone knew. By fall, she and her husband were separating. I wish I could tell this next part in a way that makes me look better. I can't. Nothing happened at first. That's the truth, which almost makes it worse, because when something happens quickly, you can blame heat, crisis, momentum. But when it builds slowly between two adults who both know exactly how wrong it is, then what you're watching is consent in its most dangerous form. It was late one evening when the line finally disappeared. Dana had come by after meeting with her attorney. We sat on the back patio with 2 glasses of wine, while the neighborhood settled into that expensive suburban quiet where every porch light glows like a curated photo. She was talking about how exhausting it was to become a topic inside your own family. Then she stopped. "What?" I asked. She looked at me for a long time and said, "Do you know what the sickest part is?" "What?" "She still thinks of herself as the one who was wronged." I let out a breath. "That sounds like Trisha." Dana's mouth curved for half a second, then flattened again. "It's not just that," she said. "It's the arrogance of it. The assumption that she gets to break something and still decide where all the pieces fall." There was too much understanding in that moment. Too much injury reflected back and forth. The kind of chemistry that doesn't begin in attraction, but in recognition. When she reached for her glass, her hand brushed mine. Neither of us moved away. I should have. She should have. Instead, we sat there breathing the same night air, both of us aware that a line existed mostly because neither person had crossed it yet. When she kissed me, it was soft and brief and instantly irreversible. We pulled apart and just stared at each other. "No," she whispered first, though neither of us sounded convincing. "No," I repeated. Then she kissed me again. What followed was not revenge, not exactly. That would be easier to condemn and easier to explain. It was something uglier, because it contained real feeling alongside the damage. Relief, desire, companionship, anger, grief, vindication, loneliness, all the things that make bad decisions feel temporarily holy. For a while, we kept it hidden. That sentence alone tells you everything about how far I had fallen from the man I believed myself to be. I had justified it in 100 ways. Trisha and I were over. Dana was leaving her husband. No vows were being broken. And yet I knew exactly what it was. A contamination. A choice made in the emotional rubble of one betrayal that guaranteed another layer of ruin. The day Trisha found out was almost a year after the confrontation. She came by unannounced to pick up the last box of decorations she had left in the attic. The kind of meaningless leftovers people delay collecting, because as long as one box remains, some fantasy of return remains with it. Dana's car was already in the driveway. I opened the door before she could ring the bell. She looked from me to the car and froze. "Why is Dana here?" I said nothing. Then Dana stepped into the hallway behind me. There are images that feel written by something crueler than fate. My ex-wife standing on the porch, seeing her sister in my house, wearing one of my shirts, was one of them. At first, Trisha didn't understand. You could see her mind rejecting the shape in front of it. Then she did, and the sound that came out of her was not anger at first. It was disbelief. "No," she said. "No, no." Dana's face tightened. "Trish, don't." Her voice broke into something raw. "Don't you dare say my name." The hypocrisy of that should have stunned me, but by then I was beyond surprise. Trisha looked at me as if I had become an animal. "You did this to hurt me," I answered honestly. It didn't start that way. That hurt her more than if I had lied. Because a revenge affair can be dismissed as cruelty. Something real is harder to survive. She stared at her sister with a kind of horror I had once reserved for her. "You knew," she whispered. "You knew what she did to me." Dana's eyes flashed then, the first anger I had ever seen her direct fully at Trisha. "What she did to you?" Trisha took a step back. Dana moved closer. "You lied to him. You lied to all of us. You burned down your marriage in front of the whole family, and somehow you still think every feeling in the room belongs to you." Trisha's face crumpled. For a second, I saw all three versions of her at once. The polished wife, the cheating woman, the little girl from a family that had taught her beauty could get her forgiven faster than honesty ever could. Then she looked at me again. And there it was, the final image. Not rage, not pleading, recognition. Recognition that infidelity doesn't stay inside the boundaries you imagine for it. It leaks, it spreads, it poisons bloodlines. It changes the moral temperature of every room it enters. She had wanted secrecy, excitement, control. Instead, she created a chain reaction. And now she was standing on the porch of the house where she used to live, realizing her affair hadn't just ended a marriage. It had opened the door to something far more humiliating. Her husband had crossed a line with her sister. She left without the box. Dana closed the door and leaned against it, pale and shaking. Neither of us spoke for a long time. There was no victory in that moment. That's the part people always get wrong about endings like this. They imagine someone wins. No one wins when love rots inside a family. No one wins when betrayal becomes a language everyone suddenly speaks. I still trade from home. The office is still upstairs. The neighborhood still looks peaceful. The lawns are still perfect. Some evenings the sun still hits the houses across the street in a way that makes them seem untouched by ordinary human ruin. But I know better now. I know that the most dangerous cracks are never loud in the beginning. They start in the tilt of a phone, the extra hour gone from home, the skipped dinner, the easy lie, the smile meant for someone else. And I know something else too. Once trust is breached, people don't just reveal who they are. Sometimes they become someone worse. I used to make a living finding weaknesses in systems. In the end, the system that failed most completely was the one I thought I lived inside safely. My marriage, my home, myself.